Hello, I am Tim Kirk, the owner of Silverlion Studios and the creator of High Valor and the Hearts and Souls role-playing games. These are tabletop role-playing games. If you're not familiar with those, you can find that information on the net in a lot of places. I want to talk today not about games I design, but about games I enjoy. Most notably, I'm going to talk about Shadowrun. I'm currently running a game of this via Skype for a few friends on Thursday nights, and it is designed a little bit differently than the way I've seen a lot of Shadowrun games go. This is the 4th edition of the rules, which really has nothing to do with how I've taken the game as the GM behind it. Most notably, I feel some games and the way some people run Shadowrun is along the lines of what people call murder hobos. They don't really worry about where they live. They don't worry about anything but going and killing and taking. And in Shadowrun, that's something that's part of the game, but it's usually you are taking for someone else, and being quiet, not killing, is sometimes a better solution. But that misses something, I feel. Not everybody feels the same about a genre as I do, but particularly about cyberpunk, is that cyberpunk characters, and quite a few of the novels that touch upon cyberpunk themes, are people caught in the middle of a situation they don't necessarily want to be in. And in many ways, those that are in those situations try and, to put it euphemistically, stick to the man. Because the man is the person who puts them in the middle. The corporations who step on their rights, the criminals who manipulate them, and the powers that be, whether they're government or corporation, in the games, basically trotting over everyone like they weren't even there. Now, here is the literature that I use for my basis of cyberpunk. Neuromancer. William Gibson, one of the better of the cyberpunk novels. Not the only. I've read a lot, and I'm only going to show you some of my favorites here. But one of the notable things is the protagonists in these books. Is usually they do take somewhat of a stand. Not all of them, but some of them take a stand against what occurs in these situations that are popular in cyberpunk role-playing games. I'm not saying somebody's doing it wrong. Believe me, if you want to play that way, go ahead. But I'm talking about how I play. And the way I prefer to play is about people interacting with their own society who realize that not everyone is out to get them, while many people are. But there are people who are caught in the middle just like them, people who could use help by professionals, by people who have the skills to bite the corporation where the sun doesn't shine. This one is probably more suitable to that background than the first one, Neuromancer. This is Count Zero, also by William Gibson, and taking place in the same universe, but a little later. Notably, characters caught in the middle that it flips through, and their decisions shape what's going on. I enjoy the fact that it adds a little touch of voodoo to their internet and the AIs that roam it, that have sort of become real on their own. The next book is, again, one of those that I feel follows that theme, Hardwired. They deal with taking down the people who are manipulating events to keep things scarce, to keep people paying high prices for drugs and the like. Most notably, the one main character is a panzer driver who used to be a rocket jockey, a scramjet jockey, same difference, rocket, just a near atmosphere rocket, who runs drugs across the states to avoid the tariffs that make it impossible for poor people to get the drugs, as well as the forced rarities of the corporations. There's also a woman trained to be an assassin who ends up being his partner in the middle of the book, and how they deal with these kinds of things going in the situation. But I'm not really here to review the book. I enjoy these books. They're great, but these are what I use for the basis of cyberpunk. I also use these. These are the S. Andrew Swan's Forest of the Night series. They don't focus on cybernetics, although they exist. They focus on genetically uplifted animals and genetically altered humans as protagonists, and their mores were given rights after the Catholic Church basically said they had a soul. And I appreciate that in a book, is that not everything we expect to be negative and tyrannical always is when we expect them to be. Now, the other books don't use the same character as the first one, which is Nohar Rajasthan, who's a tiger private eye. They use people he met until the last book, where he comes back and deals with fallout of stuff that happened in the first book. The second book deals with Angela Lopez, a genetically engineered rabbit. And the next book deals with, I can't remember her name. Nope. What was her name? Evie Isham. Okay, sorry, it took me a minute. Wasted time there, but I'm not going to go back and reshoot this. I've done it too many times at this point. But basically, she's a Frank, because the genetically uplifted animals are called mores or moros, and the genetically engineered humans are called Franks for Frankenstein. Kind of a neat little twist on the whole cyberpunk vision of the future. Solid books. And they have people who are fundamentally trying to do good in their lives and make it out of the messes that have been decorated around them, and, you know, all of the crap they have to swim through. The last set of books I'm going to talk about today is these, Freelancers and Freefall by Mel Odom. They are based on a role-playing game. Matter of fact, they are based upon a setting created for Top Secret SI. Back when TSR was creating role-playing games like Top Secret espionage games and sci-fi games, and a lot of other genre games other than just what their Wizards of the Coast, their Descendant, and Hasbro does now, which is focus on D&D. When they were doing a bunch of genres, they produced the espionage game Top Secret, and they produced this setting for it that was near future espionage with science fiction cyberpunk elements, including low-level super beings, you know, metables, a form of mutant, you might say. And they did a really good job of presenting that setting, except the fact that they only predicted it a couple decades in the future, as opposed to the novels, which Mel Odom adjusted to being set in the 2050s, which is far enough away that there may be some of the changes that are predicted in these books to actually come about in terms of technology. But one of the important things that I get from these books is that a cyberpunk hero, the protagonist of this fiction, hero protagonist, yes, we all know where that one comes from, but the hero of these fictions are not always criminals just to be criminals. They're criminals often for a cause. Yes, they're in it for themselves too, but it's much like Han Solo. Han Solo's a smuggler. He's in it for himself. But he's fundamentally a good guy when all is said and done. He's a scoundrel at heart, yes, but in the end he comes through. And that's what many of these characters are. They're the people who come through when nobody else will. And I think that's an important thing in Cyberpunk and Shadowrun, and why my game is focusing on these kinds of situations where, notably, these people are often the only people anyone else has to turn to in this situation. Yes, this is going to be a rough video journal, but I'm tired of doing it because I've done it like 15 times and it hasn't worked out where I get it perfect. And I think that's my downfall. We're going to stop it here. But basically, cyberpunk is a good genre to try different things in the terms of who your heroes are and what they're trying to accomplish. But remember, they are still heroes and can be heroes, at least as modern fantasy and science fiction want them to be. Good people caught in bad places, trying to do good things.